Tema Talks is brought to you by the Tema Conter Memorial Trust, which is Canada's leading provider of peer support, family assistance, education and training for emergency services, public safety, military personnel, and their families. Check out tema.ca for more information. The views, opinions, and endorsements expressed in each podcast episode are those of the host and the guest alone, and do not necessarily reflect the official position of the Tema Conter Memorial Trust. The subject matter of this podcast may be triggering for some listeners. Please take the time to get yourself in a calm and positive mind space before listening so you can get the most out of the podcast. Okay, cue the music and enjoy this episode of Tema Talks.
Hello people, and welcome to episode 13 of Tema Talks. Thanks for joining me. We're a little bit more than halfway through PTSD Awareness Month. So thank you for keeping up with me as we put out a lot of podcasts this month. One little thing before we get into who our guest is going to be. I've noticed some social media stuff popping up again where people are having the courage to speak up about their struggles, and what they're getting in return is a comparison to other people's struggles. This is really easy to do, easy to fall into that trap. Guys, I've said it before and I'll say it again. There is no gold medal for trauma. Nobody's traumatic experiences are more traumatic than somebody else's. It's all relative to the person. It can be really easy to come out and say, well, I've had it harder than you. It's just an untrue statement. It's just not one it's not one you can quantify at all. It's an emotional statement is what it is. And I've done it, so I get it. But we have to stop doing it. Everybody's trauma is relative to them and to them alone. Stop competing. Start supporting. Please. Okay. My guest this episode is Stefanie Davis-Miller. She's a paramedic. She was one of the recipients of a scholarship from the Tema Conter Memorial Trust. She teaches multiple mental health courses. Is also really big into fitness and sports training. Had a really good chat with her. The sound quality is a little bit scratchy in some areas, so bear with me. It must have been a somewhat bad connection, but it's good. You'll get through it. I loved it. Let's get to it.
It was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in.
Stefanie Miller, welcome to Tema Talks. It is nice to finally have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited and humbled to be a part of your podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Obviously, we've been trying to hook this up for a long time. I have known, quote-unquote, you for a long time on social media, but then met you for the first time in February at the Tema Gala. I believe that was the first time that we met.
It was an honor to be there, for sure.
Yeah, and it was awesome. So, and then right from there, we had to make a push to get you on. And I'm excited to have this chat. So for me, getting to know you better, and for anybody else listening who may not know you, Stefanie, can you just give us a little bit of your origin story as far as how you grew up, where you grew up, and what your upbringing was like?
Sure, absolutely. So I am the daughter of a 32-year Toronto Police veteran.
Oh, okay.
So, that's kind of where I'm coming from there. Always been in that first responder circle. We lived in and about the GTA or the Greater Toronto area,
okay.
And my dad worked for Toronto Police. So, there was lots of super early mornings that I up as my dad was ready for work, entering his post and whatnot. I'd encounter kind of talking to him, having him, sending him off for the day. And then, of course, there was always the end of the day, when he'd come home and me wanting to, just kind of, did you get the bad guys, Daddy? Can you tell me a story? Things like that.
Yeah.
So there was always a curiosity and deep admiration and respect for my dad.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
So what led you to want to eventually get into the emergency services field as a paramedic?
So a little twist to that story. Originally, actually, I wanted to be a police officer, like my dad.
Of course.
Yeah, had the dream of, growing up and him retiring his badge to me and kind of moving forward from there. But life took over. And, instead of, kind of pursuing that goal at that time, I became a mom. And, I worked a little part-time here and there, in the veterinary industry, actually.
Okay.
And so I really enjoyed, the medicine, the science, the helping, the caring part of that.
Right.
I really craved, I guess just being out there, being on the street and being real with people. I guess it's that connection, that I really missing. And so when it was time, I had made a deal with my first husband that, we would get the kids off to a good start, first 5 years I'll be home. And then it was my turn to kind of pursue whatever I wanted to do. And so I decided on paramedicine because I still got the lights and sirens and all the excitement. But then, I was able to care for people and provide help that way.
Awesome. So from what I read in your bio, that's when you first came into contact with the Temaconta Memorial Trust. That's
correct. So first year paramedicine, Vince Savoya came in and did a presentation for my paramedic class. I think it was in a psychology class, just about what the Tema Trust was. He gave us a talk just about, PTSD and mental health challenges that as a first responder, someone going into this field, might face. Signs and symptoms, et cetera, which I thought was really helpful, because this is information a lot of us aren't really aware of. Maybe we haven't experienced these things before. And even if we think that we're invincible, because most of us think we are when we're students,
yeah, that's right. It's
great information to just put in your back pocket. So at the end of this amazing presentation, done by Vince, he, did the story of how he came to have PTSD and what he's done about it. Right. He challenged the students. He challenged us to complete an essay. There was a whole list of criteria, of course, based on PTSD, to research it. What was the history, different types of treatments, and then the final part was, kind of our thoughts moving forward and what did we plan to do, in order to make a difference and try to make things better, for the first responder community.
Yeah.
So, anyone who's been in paramedic school knows that it's incredibly intense and demanding, and it was difficult. I don't know if anyone else in my class actually submitted an essay, and it was the usual excuses. I'm just too busy. There's too much going on. I've got this due. I've got an exam. But Vince's presentation really struck a chord with me. I had a little bit of a PTSD background before even getting into the first responder world, and so. It really resonated with me, a lot of his story and almost.
Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah,
you don't have to get really deep into it, but maybe a little bit of it.
Yeah. There was a kind of a triad of events that happened in 1993, actually. Okay. Any one of the three events that happened probably been a catalyst for someone having at least acute stress disorder, if not, developing into PTSD later on.
Right.
In 93, now I'm dating myself, I was 17. Huh. And as a 17-year-old kid, there's a lot that you don't understand. There's a lot that, my family didn't understand, PTSD or really any type of mental health challenge or injury was discussed.
Right.
And so unfortunately, through those events, two of them happened back to back within less than 24 hours. Okay. And then the third event happened about 2 months later. And so, with that, one of the, I was in a hurricane in Florida. Less than 8 hours later, my best friend was killed in a car accident. And then 2 months later, I was the victim of a sexual assault. So, wow. My world was shaken. And, by that third, insult, if you wish, to me, I just felt like I didn't have a support system. And, there's a real correlation between a person's support system or the amount of support that a person receives
right.
With relation to their recovery. Yeah. And so, at the time, my world had just fallen apart. And, going from one thing to the next, you're just numb. And so then as a result of that, there was 7 years where I had all sorts of different, which I now know are clinical signs and symptoms. I can read it in the textbook, but at the time I had no idea. Right. So things like outbursts of anger, just risky behavior, no regard for myself.
Yeah.
I often talk about my inner warrior. That kind of took over after, I lost my friend, and my need, it was almost like an addiction. I had to protect everyone else. I didn't care about myself, but I would do anything at all costs, to protect all my friends and whatnot, and family and whoever was involved. And I've later learned that inner warrior part, that protector, is actually a control mechanism. And so that's the thing.
For sure.
When you go through these different horrible, traumatic events, your loss of control is completely gone. And so that's, for years. And, even to this day, although I don't like to admit it, I think that that's still a big part of me. I still like to have control, right?
Oh, for sure it is. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, knowing that, thank you for, talking a little bit about it, and knowing that now, and knowing who you are now, it totally makes sense why you're so passionate about this, in general, For me, it does anyway. And I'm sorry I drew you out in down a little rabbit hole there, but I'm going to bring you back. So you were talking about the essay. You did the essay for Vince.
Absolutely, yeah. So you summed up what I wanted to say in a nutshell. Is just that I have a real passion to get this information out there because I've suffered. I know what it's like, and absolutely. So I did my best. I was in a marriage that was dissolving. I had 2 young kids that I was 100% responsible for, as well as, trying to juggle a part-time job and do paramedic school. Yeah. But it was important to me, so I did it. And, my mom was amazing. I think she did a million edits for me before I submitted the essay, but I got it done, down to the wire. I think it was, it must have been late December. And I didn't really think much more of it. I felt that I had already won because it gave me a focus, it gave me a purpose and a deadline to research a lot of this stuff, because even though I had been diagnosed with PTSD in 2000,
right.
I didn't understand. I didn't really fully understand what that meant.
Right.
I knew that I had gotten myself to a point where I was in some serious trouble, needed some help. But, I didn't know. I thought I was cured, even though I was still having, some flashbacks or triggers or whatnot. I just thought that was something I had to live with, and PTSD was cured, and that was it. So delving into the research was amazing. It was so educational for me, and I find that is how I learn best. That is how I grow. That is how I improve myself. So that in itself was a gift. And then when I received, I think it was an email telling me that I had won, I was blown away. I was so excited. It was just absolutely phenomenal. So the Tema Trust was very gracious and put us up and just treated us like royalty for 4 days. And of course, at the end of that 4 days was the gala, which was just an amazing experience. I had never been to anything quite like it. And
it is amazing. The last one was my first one, and it's incredible.
It's almost overwhelming. It brings me to tears every time, when the honor guard marches in, and it's just a very beautiful tribute to something that is very real and really deserves recognition. So from that experience on, even just, when I got that email telling me that I was one of the Ontario Scholarship winners, I decided that I needed to pay it forward. This was such an honor. And I wanted to, do anything that I could to help Tema and to help spread the word and make people more aware and in essence try to, again, there's the control, but try to protect everyone, right? With education. Vince graciously, took me under his wing. He's just, we've had an amazing relationship. He's just an amazing man, actually.
He's a sweetheart. He's a big teddy bear.
Everyone involved is just, they often say that it's a Tema family, and it really, truly is.
It is. Yeah. It for sure is.
Yeah. So that's kind of where that went to. And, volunteering with Tema has, been anything from, manning a booth at a conference to, speaking to a classroom of paramedic students at colleges, and, just about anything in between.
Cool. So you started your paramedic career in 2009. Right?
That's correct, yes.
Are you still working as a paramedic now?
I am. I'm a land paramedic here at the County of Brant.
Awesome. So So you started your paramedic career long after you had a diagnosis of PTSD.
Yes.
So knowing that, when you went into this career, starting this career, knowing, you may not have known then, or maybe you did, the high risks of, what it can do to you emotionally. Were there some things that you made sure that you did right away to protect yourself, or to try to, to use whatever tools you had to try to make sure you protected that?
It's a great question. When I started my paramedic career, it was a really difficult time. As I mentioned, my marriage had been dissolving and managing the kids. I don't know that, to be honest with you, I don't know that I allowed myself time to even think about that. I didn't have time for that. Therapy for me is helping people. And so anytime that I'm out there helping someone else, it's that caregiver, caretaker, kind of situation, right? Where, I'm giving the care, but what I'm getting out of the care is that sense of purpose. It makes me feel good to know that at least, even if it's something horrific, that I was there to maybe take some of that pain, panic, grief away from you, that, I was able to hold your hand. I was able to talk to you for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
That helped. So, I just pushed through, to be honest with you. I didn't look after myself. I didn't have time to think. Shortly after I started my career at the County of Brant, I was separated. And so there I was, a single mom, supporting my kids, and the part-time job that was available at the time wasn't enough. And so I had to work. At one point I was juggling 3 jobs and teaching first aid just to make ends meet.
Yeah.
So until a few years into, the career, that I realized, wow, I need to talk to somebody. Things were not going well, and I even had to take a break from TEMA for a little bit from any of the volunteering I was doing, because it was time to look after me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So what kind of things did you do then once you realized it was that time?
At the time I was working for a different service, and they did have an EAP program.
Okay.
And so I did request a referral, or that they send me over to talk to a therapist. And luckily, I was set up with someone that was great. And so I attended counseling appointments. I think I was going once a week, and that lasted pretty intensely for a couple of months, just to get my, head straight, if I can say that, at least get me to a point where I could, cope again. In short of that, a lot of support, incredible support I received. I don't think I'd be here today without that. One from TEMA, who basically said, you come when you can, you do what you can, we love you, just let us know when you're ready. Right. So there's no guilt or ill will there. They were very supportive. My family basically dropped everything and came to help me. I had friends that would take my kids in at any time of the day if I was called into work. And physical fitness has always been a big thing for me. Running,
right.
Weight training, not only to keep me healthy enough so that I can actually do my job, but it's a great release. So you've got all this negative energy, this tension that's building up in your body. And for me, I need that. I find that when I lay off the gym a little bit, I can sense it. I can really feel it. My personality, I get anxious. I really, really, really need that release, or, there's going to be some problems. Yeah.
Or things don't go well.
Absolutely. And then just dabbling a little bit in horseback riding and anything like that, trying my best to do a little bit for myself. That's basically what I did.
Yeah, that's awesome. When I was reading your bio, it hurt my brain because there's so many things that you do. I told you before we started this, I said you're like the Swiss Army knife of mental health wellness. You have all these tools, which is awesome. You're an amazing resource. Can you tell us about some of the many courses that you actually instruct?
Oh, okay. As far as courses, most recently, I was lucky enough to be the person that was sent from my service, as well with another employee there, a colleague, through the Road to Mental Readiness.
Right.
That's put on by the Mental Health Commission of Canada, of course. Yeah. And I really view that as kind of an entry-level introduction into mental health, mental well-being. And, mental health injuries as well as illnesses. And I think I really like to highlight injury.
Yeah.
because, you know, a lot of times, well, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Stigma's there.
Absolutely.
You know, and so when people talk about, you know, oh, this person's mentally ill, that stigma, you know, that cloak is there right away.
Right.
But when we start to change the language a little bit and say it's an injury, it's a little bit different. You know, this is not your fault. Not that the other is either, but you know, it gives people,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, okay, this happened to me. This is why, you know, it just helps people, you know, come to terms with it a little more, and especially in my field where, you know, we still very much are suck it up, buttercup, you know, attitude.
Do you think we still are a lot? Do you think it's getting,
Absolutely.
how do you think it is?
From where I am, my perspective,
Yeah.
from my area, absolutely.
Really?
I would say that my area is probably one of the more difficult to penetrate.
What do you
we're
think
a
that
little
is?
we're a little further removed from the GTA, where a lot of the mental health initiatives happen. You know, I mean, that's just the way
Right.
it is. My service in particular is a smaller service, so sometimes you get a different, maybe the old boy mentality still present there.
Yeah.
You know, I can tell you that, quite often still to this day, you know, while we're maybe sitting in triage or whatever, I'll hear, you know, some sort of a remark about PTSD that's not positive. You know, someone's making a joke. You know, and that's really tricky to deal with when, you know, you're on the job and here I am, this advocate, and yet, you know, you've got to decide, well, I'm in triage and I've got a patient. Do I get into this conversation right now, or, you know, do I decide to just do my best and live through example, which is, the choice that I make, because that's, you know, that's the best, you know, way to handle that.
Yeah.
And then I can address that when I have the opportunity to run a Road to Mental Readiness program.
Yeah.
You know, in short of that, some of the other things, yeah, that's the real mental health thing. I mean, I have taken Manners, which is,
Right.
brought by the Trust, which is just a phenomenal course. As well as, the assist training. I also did that through TEMA.
And that's suicide intervention training, right?
That's correct. That's
Yeah.
correct. And, you know, when I took that, I never thought that I would have to use that on a personal, capacity. Not for me, but for someone close. And, you know, I do use that information quite a bit, while I'm on the job, but I've also had to use some of that information just as Stefanie, not paramedic Stefanie, just Stefanie, you know.
Yeah, I was lucky enough. I actually took assist training within my first couple of years or few years working at the Medical Communications Center, and I used it a lot. Yeah,
Wow.
Unfortunately, in the communications center, you know, talking to people that were suicidal, and it works. It's a really, really good program.
Absolutely. I think that, it's similar to some, I mean, we have different, you know, courses available that,
Yeah.
you know, use the word first aid. It's really true. These are common sense for the most part, things that we think or know, or some of us would act on already. But taking the course, just reinforces that that's the right thing to do and encourages you and kind of lets you know that that's okay. And maybe, you know, addressing things like you would have had to with language, right? Are you suicidal? Are you considering suicide?
Right.
It's such a scary thing to ask somebody, but it's not really,
Absolutely it is.
you know. So yeah, I mean, just the courses that I've taken through TAMA and different workshops I've attended are just phenomenal. And I come away with, you know, wonderful tidbits every time that I can throw into my toolbox and, you know, use whatever way I can, or maybe share it with someone else, and hopefully it helps them out.
Absolutely. So, and presently, right now, you're enrolled in the Trauma Prevention and Recovery Diploma program.
I am with Simon Fraser University and partners with TEMA.
And that's a
Yeah.
new program.
Yes, I believe it's only been, I think this is a year and a half, maybe, that it's been out there.
Okay.
If I might be so bold, yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that. How's that going?
You know, it's a wonderful program. Again, it's kind of like, you know, taking your CPR recertification. A lot of these things, at least speaking as a paramedic, because these are the things that these are the calls, these are the people that we deal with. And then, you know, if you take a step back further, this is my colleague, this is me. So it's really, really interesting. I'm on my third course right now.
Okay.
How
many courses are there in total?
There's 10. It's a diploma program.
Right.
So, and I believe you have 5 years to complete, all of the requirements. But you know, it's certainly an adult style form of learning, which is amazing because we're all, you know, juggling shift work and families and goodness knows what else is going on in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, for the most part, you take it at your own pace. Of course, there's some deadlines. You interact with classmates online.
How many people are in the class? Do you know?
Goodness. Gee, that's a tricky question. I would probably be giving you the wrong numbers, but I would say at least 20.
Okay, yeah.
Per course, yeah. So it's a good mix of people, and it really is. My most recent course that I'm in right now, there are people even from the United States that are taking the course.
Perfect.
So that is just, wow, that's how far it's reaching. That's how far, the word is spreading and people, are finding this information and finding it valuable. So, I'm really enjoying it. Currently I'm in a program that's, I believe it's called Introduction to Addictions.
Okay.
And already within my first 2 modules, I thought I knew just about everything there was to know about addictions and opioids, because where I work is the opioid overdose capital of Ontario.
Really?
But
okay.
I'm being schooled and I'm enjoying it. It's amazing. It's amazing. And along the way, some people share some of their, personal stories as well. And that helps to just kind of, add validity to, the information that we're reading. The professors are great, approachable. I would recommend it to anybody. Absolutely.
No, that's awesome. Right. So right now you're living in Brantford, right?
Yeah, I live in Paris, Ontario, which is, just outside of Brantford, about 15 minutes to take.
All right. So you mentioned to me before we started that you were hoping to develop, or maybe you already have, trying to get some mental health evenings.
Yes, absolutely.
What's that
in this area, there's not a lot out there. There's not a lot of help or support. A lot of my colleagues, even if they are struggling, they have no idea where to go.
Right.
So what I'm planning on doing, I'm looking at doing 2 events this year. Okay. The first is actually going to be in collaboration with TEMA. And what I'd like to do, I'm just working on securing a venue to have a screening of The Other Side of the Hero.
Perfect. Excellent.
So that's very, very exciting. And, we'll see. I'm hoping to make that announcement shortly. That's super awesome. The second event, I'm just trying to decide if I want to do an afternoon or an evening. I was looking at using the name Helping the Helpers. That was, an event that I attended out actually at where you are in
John
Scotia.
Garth.
John Garth, absolutely. So, John Garth and his wife Michelle have been fabulous, just helping out with some information and how to approach people, how to secure a venue, how to run my event. And so again, that event is going to be about information sharing, about people getting up and sharing their stories and helping to give a voice to people who just don't feel that they are able to talk yet, or maybe they feel that what they're experiencing, they're alone or nobody will understand. It's about community. It's about support. So I'm very, very excited, to run that. I'm just working out the logistics and who exactly I can get in to speak and moving forward. That should be, I'm hoping that, will be either, October, November of this year.
Awesome. Well, certainly let us know, because we'll plug the hell out of it. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll rock it. So that'll be anytime you ever do anything like that. So as if that wasn't enough, because you seem like you're a pretty lazy person. Now you're gonna go in and co-author a book.
Yes.
Because you have nothing else better to do.
Well, who's got spare time to waste, right? I met a wonderful lady who's become a friend of mine. We were horseback riding, and I had mentioned to her about a book that I had started writing a couple years ago and had put on hold. Because the book is basically detailing, my personal journey and just, some of those experiences you can imagine with some of the things I mentioned earlier were pretty painful.
Yeah.
And, so along with that whole self-care, idea or concept, you do really have to look after yourself, because as much as I want to share and help people and share of myself to help people, there's a cost. So it's, wonderful, and it makes me feel very good. And I'm very, very happy to be that person to, try and put the information out there to give someone, the help that they need. But at the same time, it brings me right back to some of those experiences and, the impacts of that. Unfortunately I still have PTSD. It didn't go away. I just have coping mechanisms.
Right. Yeah.
So, in discussion with, my, sorry, that's my dog.
He needs to settle down, that dog.
She does. I'm sorry.
I'm only joking. It's life. It's all good.
Yeah, just, I've got an absolutely wonderful therapist who, if I'm having a rough day or having, some difficulty at any time, I can pick up my cell phone and throw him a text message and let him know I'm having a difficult time, and he will get back to me, within a reasonable time, meaning hours, minutes, and
awesome.
have a discussion with me just to bring me back in. And, it's funny. We had a discussion just the other day where it was one of those things that something had kind of set me off, and he spent 2 hours just talking to me, just making sure that, we kind of understood, what it was that might have set me off, and giving me a lot to chew on, because of course that's what they do, right? But, so, I mean, that is just an incredible support there. And back to the book, I'm getting off topic here. Anyway, so I mentioned to my girlfriend that I would like to start writing again. And, she said, "Oh my gosh, that's great. I've just submitted a chapter to this collaboration project." So, her name's Stacey Cooper, and, Stacey set me up with a lady by the name of Heather Andrews out of Calgary. And she's got a business called Follow It Through, which is basically a publication, collaboration business. So I, contacted her and, gave her a little bit of my story, and, she signed me right away, which was pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what I've contributed is a chapter. So it's kind of the Coles notes of just, my growth through adversity, mentioning some of the stuff that we talked about today. And, I'm hoping that can help people, impact them in a little way. Originally when I started all of this and my concept of sharing myself to help others, the message I wanted to originally tell people was, hey, if I can do it, little old me that, at one point felt that I, was smaller than a speck of dust on the ground and worth nothing. If I can do it, you can do it. But along the way, I've realized that that's actually not true, because we're all individuals. We're all unique. We all come to whatever lived experiences we have with our own backgrounds, our experiences, our feelings, our perceptions.
And that's okay. It's okay if you can't do something.
Absolutely okay. And so that's exactly what I'm trying to say now is that, just kind of like those catchphrases are, it really is. It's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
Here's my story, and this is what worked for me. And it's not all unicorns and rainbows. I have extremely good days and good times, good periods of my life. Like this right now is pretty awesome. But don't, for a second think that there isn't, a little bit of other stuff that follows me through too. And so that takes constant work, constant good support from my family, and knowing my limits and learning my limits, and just, you can't stop learning. You have to keep working on yourself and learning new things about yourself and how to challenge yourself. But also when to say, you know what, it's okay. It's time to take a break. It's time to take a step back and look after me, look after my family, and move forward from there.
So on that note, taking a break, when do you ever do that?
Well, we do. My husband and I, our thought is that, we both work pretty hard. So, we like to play hard as well. So, we will, take vacations, some pretty nice vacations. I'm not gonna lie, I'm very fortunate, we save up and go and that's just us time, and it's couples time. Mm-hmm. And it really gives us time to, reconnect, because we often are so busy, and that in itself is something to watch, because that is also, can be a symptom of, all this other stuff that's going on, right, with PTSD and anxiety, etc. Right. It usually takes me a couple days, and I now understand that it takes me a couple days because I have to connect with myself before I connect with anybody else. Yeah. So, that's important. We do that. But I'll also, work like crazy for a couple of months, and then I'll take a month or I'll take a couple of weeks where I do nothing. I'll still go on social media a little bit, but I'm not as active as I normally would be. I don't engage really in going out too much. I'm kind of a homebody. I enjoy, being at home with my dog, as you heard. My kids, my husband, my parents have a cottage. I'm very fortunate that sometimes we'll just drop everything and head up to the cottage for a couple of days, and just enjoy the quiet.
It's really important to learn how to do that. I haven't learned how to do that well, especially with doing this podcast. I find myself always on my phone, not really fidgeting with it, but I'm always trying to, posting on social media about the podcast and checking, analytics, and I'm on all the different social media networks, and it can be overwhelming. My wife, rightfully so, gets on my case all the time because I won't even realize it, and 45 minutes, an hour goes by, and I'm just and I haven't put my phone down, or I'll put it down for like 3 seconds and then pick it back up and do something else that I really probably don't have to do then. But if you're not mindful of it, it can really take over.
Absolutely. I would have to tell you that I'm in the same situation as you are. Certainly my husband gets a little, perturbed with me sometimes. He's just like, you're always on your phone. So I am not perfect. I am working hard at it. Certainly when I'm at work, sometimes if I'm on offload delay or, goodness knows what we're sitting waiting for a call on a standby. Yeah. There's something else to do, but it is important to put that device down. Maybe I'll plug it into my bedroom and then go downstairs and enjoy, a couple hours. Now that's pushing it, maybe an hour of some TV time where,
yeah.
But you're right. I mean, your cell phone, the computers, et cetera, the technology is, it's tricky. You're on there to look up a recipe for cooking, and the next thing you know, you're instant messaging somebody. So,
yeah.
That needs a lot of work in my department as well, and it's something that I'm trying, and I need to maybe try a little bit harder at removing myself from that.
Well, I don't think anybody can ever say that you don't try hard. You seem to be a hard worker. If anybody wanted to get a hold of you to ask questions or anything like that, if you're up for that, how could they do that? How could they connect with you?
Absolutely. So I am on Facebook, with my age and whatnot. It makes sense. That's kind of our social media platform there. So they can contact, I'm on there as Stefanie Davis Miller.
Right.
But I also have just started a new Facebook page called Stefanie.
Yes. Sorry,
and so, yeah, the whole idea just behind that is,
sorry, can you say the name again, Stefanie? Because I think I talked right over top of you. So go ahead.
Sure, no problem. It's just called Stefanie Speaks, and so that's STEFANIE, just the word speaks.
Perfect.
The picture is just a pink background with the words, those words on it. But that's a great way to reach me as well. And that page is basically going to be dedicated to just this, to, speaking about, all of the different challenges that we have and trying to provide resources, as best as I can for people. Of course, there'll be some information on, the upcoming book release on there.
Right.
And any speaking engagements that, might come up as well. And then I'm also on Instagram, and I believe on Instagram I'm, Steffi Medic.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right on. That's awesome. Stefanie, before we let you go, I would like to ask you that if there's anybody listening to this right now that is struggling at any level, and if they were in front of you, what would you say to them?
It may sound a little harsh. I don't mean it to. But a quote that I use in some of my presentations is true. It's, one of the scariest yet most empowering things that we can learn about ourselves is that you are the only one that can make a difference. You are the only one that can make a change. So I will often have people who, are struggling, and don't get me wrong, I fall into that category too. And people are upset because they don't feel that they're being supported. They don't feel that, their spouse or their employees are, and that is absolutely valid. Don't get me wrong. I completely empathize with that. But you have to be ready. You have to be ready to accept help, and you have to understand that it takes work. It takes constant work, and this will be, a thing that you always have to stay on top of.
Yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be hard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, Brené Brown talks about vulnerability. And we often, especially people who have had, some sort of an injury like we're talking about today, vulnerable is bad. I used to always think that being vulnerable was bad because being vulnerable opened me up to being hurt again.
Right.
And I was always afraid of sharing my story about my past before becoming a first responder because I felt that coming to the table with that, any type of experience or reaction that I might have to something on the job would be null and void because I was already damaged goods. And, when I decided to open up and not really admit, but just share with people what had happened and where I came from and not be afraid about that anymore, the response was overwhelming. So many fabulous, wonderful people offering their support, just willing to have that conversation with me, realizing that I am not alone. Like legitimately, I am not alone. I am not the only person out there that has gone through this. There's actually so many people.
Yeah.
So many people. I would say more people than not.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, sometimes it's my dad would say it's a Buddhist proverb, how do you eat an elephant? And then, he would wait for me. Of course, I would have to respond and, okay, Dad, one bite at a time. It's so true. Sometimes all you can do is get through that minute, get through that hour, get through that day, but just keep trying. Keep trying. There is help out there. And if you are connected with someone and you don't feel like it's helping, there are so many different treatment modalities out there. Equine therapy, pottery, physical activity, reading, knitting. I don't know. There's so many different things that you can do, for self-care. So, focus on that. Don't forget about that. And remember that you are just as important as everybody else around you, and you deserve, to have a little bit of that time dedicated to you and that work dedicated to you to make you better. But it is work. It is work. So keep trying. Don't ever stop. Don't ever stop learning. Don't ever stop working on yourself.
Well said, sister. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Stefanie, this has been incredible. You are exhausting. I look at all the stuff that you do, and I'm ready for a nap. But please don't stop doing it. It's amazing. You're fantastic. I find you very inspiring. It's good that I look at everything that you're doing, and I'm a little bit embarrassed, and I know I have to do more, which is a good thing. You need to keep going. We all have a lot more work to do. We need to keep going. So thank you, and please don't stop. And if we can do anything, if you have anything new going on, let us know. But it's been so awesome to have you here and chat.
Thank you. It has been my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, and thank you for what you're doing. And I look forward to all of the podcasts to come.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, we're not stopping. There's lots to come. So listen, Stefanie, take care of you and take care of your family, and just keep going. I love you.
Thank you. Thank you. Love you guys too. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Now my shift is finally over. I gotta deal with what's mine.
Thank you to Stefanie for taking the time to chat with us. It was amazing. I hope you loved it. A couple updates. On June 20th, on Amazon, a book that Stefanie is a part of will be available called What's Self-Love Got to Do with It? I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. So if that interests you, it'll be available on June 20th on Amazon. Also, this is short notice, but the day after this podcast comes out, June 19th, in Brantford at the Sanderson Center for the Performing Arts, they will be showing The Other Side of the Hero at no cost to you, but you do need to obtain your tickets through Eventbrite. So if that interests you, if you haven't seen this documentary yet and you'll be in the area, get out there and do that. It's really, really good, really powerful. Go see it. All right. As I've said before, if you're a first responder and would like to golf with Team Tema at the Help Our Heroes charity golf tournament on September 29th at Granite Springs Golf Course in Halifax, you can do that. Email me at tematalks@tema.ca. Attach a screenshot of you following us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and then tell me what you do to take care of your mental wellness. And also tell me what your favorite episode of podcast has been, whether it's one of the new Tema Talks episodes or the old Up Talk episodes. What's your favorite and why? Then on August 1st, we'll take the names of the people that have emailed and we'll draw one, and that person will complete our foursome and will come golf with myself, Kevin Davison, and David Wilson on September 29th at that event. All proceeds going to the Tema Contra Memorial Trust. It's going to be a great day. Hope you can come play with us. Keep sharing the Facebook page, as we're up over 800 now. 800 likes, trying to get to 1,000, and as soon as we do, we're going to draw 5 names for a Tema swag bag, as you know. So keep going. We're getting there. We're climbing slowly but surely, so thank you very much. Thanks to everybody, all of you listeners who continue to share and support the podcast. I couldn't do it without you. This wouldn't exist without you. You are all my executive producers, and I am lucky to have you. So thank you. All right, I'll be back in a few days. So until then, take care of yourself and each other. More love, less judgment.
'Cause we ain't superheroes, we're we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. And it's a heavy, heavy burden to carry.